What is going on, wrestling fans? Welcome to the Tapped In Indy Wrestling Podcast for the week of April 30th, 2025. I'm Heath Mulligan, joined by Nick McDaniel. Nick, how are you this fine morning?
Look, I'm finally back to normal. I don't even know if I told you guys this story. So Friday night, went to a show. Saturday night, I'm getting ready to go to a show, but I had to do an event. So I drove over to this event that I was going to for some friends of mine. Coming back home, getting off the ramp at Hamilton Mill on 85. Car in front of me looks like swerve super fast. So, of course, natural reaction, I kind of do the same. I hear a loud bam. Don't see anything. I'm like, okay, everything feels like it's all right. Turn at that red light. Go to turn left at the red light to turn onto the road going straight to the house. All of a sudden, tire pressure light comes on. And by the time I turn the corner,
oh, man.
I pull into that Arby's because it's a flat level parking lot. Get out.
Yeah.
Completely flat tire. By the way, it's 5:05. All the tire places are closed.
Oh, my goodness.
So your boy had to tow his car because my car doesn't come with a spare, believe it or not. So I had to tow my car to the only place that was open on Sunday. So I drive over there Sunday morning because I'm thinking, hey, now I can go to a show on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. And they tell me they have to order my tire because I want exactly the tire to match the other three. I took it to the only place that was open on Sunday that had that said tire. So, of course, then I had to wait till yesterday to get my tire replaced. So I was like, today's the first day I woke up since Saturday that I had a car.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's why if people are wondering, like, hey, I didn't do any shows on Saturday, didn't do any shows on Sundays, there's your answer. I could have gone in my wife's car, but, she had stuff to do too, so I just kind of stayed home and worked.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. Well, fans, if you want more insight like that and you want to get the shows early and you want to get the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight every week, you need to go to patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Join today. You can join for free. If you join for free, you're going to get that Georgia Wrestling Spotlight show every single week. Once you go to the paid levels, you're going to get show notes. This week, we've got 12 pages of show notes. You do not want to miss that. You're going to get shows early, and at the higher levels, $10 to $25, you are going to get those brand new tapped out collectible comic book covers. You can get the digital one, or you get the digital one and the physical copy. The one for this month, Brady Booker. It is beautiful. A signed, copy from him. Thanks to Brady for doing that. And there is much more to come. There's never been a better time to become a paid Patreon member. Again, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. If you're watching, and you are watching this on YouTube, because where the show is, make sure you hit that like button on this video. And if you have not subscribed, subscribe and hit the notifications. Nick, I know you got a lot going on with the collectibles. You keep pushing out new merch, and the guys keep giving us good reports of how that stuff's flying off their tables.
Yeah, this past week we added the 11x17 poster to the mix, so now you can do 4x5s, 8x10s, 11x17s. Do you want an exclusive? I can show you something. It's to my left. Give me 1 second. It's something I started doodling with, and so I did a friend of the show. I did a birthday present for them because I wanted them to be the guinea pig for the newest addition to what we're going. We're not doing it yet. I want to see how they sell or whatever.
Yeah,
but
nice.
So this is kind of a spoiler alert, by the way, because they don't even have their 8x10s yet of this. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, I did some trading cards. I kind of messed around with that, left them white on the back so they could be autographed on the back. So you could get an autographed trading card. So those are probably coming. We'll find out again based on how they sell. We'll take the artwork, the comic book covers, and we can do the trading cards as well. So again, if it's stuff you want, like we're not selling individually to the fans, we're just doing the exclusives on Patreon. But I do want to say, if you see, if you want your favorite wrestler to get some, tag them, message them, say, hey, pick up some. I want to get some. let them know. That's the best way to get your favorite wrestler to get one, in my opinion. But look, we've had so much feedback on the guys wanting to volunteer to be the
Yes.
monthly Patreon exclusive. The $25 level may become more valuable even than that, because I've considered doing like some random months doing 2 for the $25 level. So you'll get the one that's the digital copy, you'll get that one, and maybe doing another one, like another exclusive one, and just kind of, when I ship you your physical 8x10, throwing the other one in there with it as well, getting it autographed and stuff like that. So that's probably, like, I've literally had that many people volunteering to do it that I may go to every couple months doing 2 of them in there, and you won't know. It'll be a surprise when it shows up in the mail. You'll actually see that then.
It will definitely be a surprise. Speaking of surprises, now everybody you're going to get, if you become a patron, everybody you're going to get on those signed pictures is a first round draft pick. Over the weekend, Nick, was the NFL draft, and the big story, the dominating story, before, during, and after the draft, is the story of Shedeur Sanders, projected as a potential first round pick. He falls to the 5th round. Listen, there's been so much talk, speculation. I think what you and I wanted to talk about was in this situation where you have someone projected high, they fall. Is there a lesson to be learned from this for young indie wrestling talents and how they conduct themselves and in the nature of business in 2025?
Yes, I 100% think so. And by the way, this is not, you're talking to a guy who I thought he was a really good quarterback. I really did. Off the air, we were kind of talking about this a little bit, and I made the comment, like, I thought it was ridiculous that he fell to the 5th round. Now, you could argue first round, second round, whatever. Those things I don't get into, because that's it. Look, the argument of there was only 3 teams legitimately that probably were interested in drafting him, that's the thing. So you start limiting the pool, because everybody's like, 32 teams passed on him. Kansas City's not taking a quarterback in the first round. They have Patrick Mahomes. So no, right. 31. And then you just start quarterback after team, you backwards, whatever. I think so anything I'm saying is not a knock on his physical, like what I think he can do. And I think that's part of the lesson. When we were talking about this, is we were discussing guys on the indies making it to the big leagues, whether that's AEW or WWE, TNA to some extent as well. But let's call it what it is. The 2 big ones, AEW and WWE. Me personally, I believe what people need to see out of this is athletic ability is not the end all be all. Like, I get it. You want to be the greatest wrestler on the planet. Hey, there's physically not anything you can't do in a ring. That's what we're concerned about. But then we put no concern, no thought into everything outside the ring.
Right.
That, to me, that was what was thrown down here, in my opinion. I don't think it had anything to do with what he's now. There's some people that argue some of the teams just thought he wasn't as good as he thought he was, or his family thought, right, or whatever. And by the way, how many mock drafts have people have blown in the past? By the way, I'm going to sidebar for something. Mel Kiper was losing his mind on the draft that he wasn't getting picked. But you go back and, it was like, he made the comment at one point, these people have proven they don't know anything about evaluating quarterbacks in the league. Mel, the only thing I would come back to that is I saw a laundry list of quarterbacks that he was just adamant that were can't miss prospects that have completely busted. His track record, in my opinion, is no better than any, and because no one's is.
If Mel Kiper were an Old Testament prophet, he would have already been stoned for being inaccurate. Yeah. This is the guy who said Ron Powlus would win multiple Heismans.
Yeah,
at Notre Dame. And you're probably asking yourself, well, who's Ron Powlus? Yeah, Mel Kiper. I would say none of these people know what they're talking about. I really don't think the general managers in the NFL know what they're doing. I did see some various statistics on Shedeur Sanders, like time in the pocket, number of times sacked. There were some negative statistics. So I do think, at the end of the day, you look at his statistics in college. He was 13-12 as a starting quarterback at Colorado. He had the number 2 pick in the draft was out there on the wing for him to fling it to. I think there were so many factors, and I think that is the story, to your point, that if you are a young indie wrestling talent, you got to cover all your bases. You got to get there early, and you got to help set up the ring. You got to have a positive attitude. You can't be messing around with your relationships. You got to stay out of trouble. All of these things that factor into whether or not it's worth a promoter to pay to bring you in. And we know wrestling promoters, to their detriment, are willing to look past a multitude of sins. But at the end of the day, I'm paying you $50. Are you going to sell me $50 worth of tickets?
Mm-hmm.
Unless your other shows and they don't care how many tickets they sell.
Right. Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it boils down to this is one of the ultimate lessons here. There is a extremely fine line in confidence and in being a pain in the rear to your employer, the corporate world, whatever. And I think to some extent, the people looked at it and said Shedeur's more of a detriment. He's more baggage, and I think that's kind of what we're getting at with the indie talents of, like, I've heard people, say things like, before we sign you, dude, you got to scrub your social media.
Yeah.
Like, your social media is a wreck. And it was funny. I was messaging somebody who I have the utmost respect for about this situation. And it's kind of one of those things, and I understand it. Look, I understand what I'm about to say is not always going to be universally accepted. But it's everybody out here is worried about keeping it real, and I'm going to, whatever. That's fine. And you have every right to do that. But you also have to understand that a WWE, an AEW, NWA, TNA, whatever, can look at you and go, hey, that's you, and we respect that. We're just not signing you, because of that. And you have to be willing to eat the bad with the good of, like, hey, I'm going to keep it real. Okay, cool. You keep it real, but you're not keeping it real under our employment.
Right.
And so that's kind of the fine line. That's kind of what I wanted to get more getting at of. I'm not knocking, look, Dion is Dion. I grew up a Dion fan. Like, nobody, like,
yes.
I've got Dion cards and things like, I'm a bit, like, massive fan. I get it. But Dion was well worth the trouble that came with the distractions or the baggage, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on the indie scene, that's all I'm saying. Like, you have to be understanding. I've personally seen it. Guys we thought were talented that eventually promoters are just like, it's just not worth it. And they just stopped using people for whatever reason. They're like, it's just not worth it anymore.
I remember there was a young guy from South Carolina. He was starting to get some opportunities. He had gotten a tryout. And I asked a promoter, I said, hey, man, I kind of assume this guy's a can't miss prospect. Why aren't you booking him anymore? And he said, never touched a board. I was like, what? He's like, never touched a board. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, never helped set up the ring. He'd just stand around and watch other guys doing it. He would get busy. He sees all of our crew helping set up the ring, helping tear down the ring. And he never lifted a finger. And we said, we're not booking him. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, sometimes it's something simple.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I also point to this, the flip side of this, and because we got to get moving. Shedeur's got an opportunity to prove himself on that roster, prove he's the best quarterback, take the job away. Because, by the way, that roster at quarterback's not like he's not backing up Patrick Mahomes. Let's just leave it at that, right? It is what it is.
Right.
But there's also, like, guys on the indies that I've seen that, hey, they've gotten a reputation, for certain things, and people say things about them, but they've bounced back from that. Like, they found that out. They've changed. You can grow. You can mature. A lot of talents on the indies are young. And so they're making young, dumb mistakes. They can turn it around. Like I said, there's a guy that I particularly know. He had a reputation for something, but now today I would 100% go. I would put my stamp on the kid and go give him an opportunity, because I think he's kind of figured it out, and he's not that guy anymore, and that's the opportunities that I think he has as well.
The great thing for Shedeur Sanders is you are going to Cleveland, which I read that since this team restarted, they've had 40 starting quarterbacks, which is, I want to say it was like 18 to 20 more than the next closest team in the NFL. So you're not coming into a franchise with a storied quarterback history. And so he will get an opportunity. He will get every opportunity to start. And he could make the most of it and make them forget about the Sean Watson debacle.
He's got the opportunity to continue to teach a lesson to the Indy wrestlers. And what I mean by that is, look, you want my honest answer? I don't think he'll start. Obviously, he's the 5th guy on the team, on the quarterback roster. Now, Deshaun's not going to play, so you could argue he's 4. They got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett in front of him by all measures. Dylan Gabriel, we'll see. But if he gets out at practice and he's slinging it, and he's learned a playbook, and he's on top of it, and he's audibling, at practice, and he's doing, he's calling protections or whatever. The one thing we know about the NFL, eventually they're going to go, this is our best opportunity to win.
Yes,
we're going to play him. But you also have to say, Dad, shut up and stay out of this, and let me earn my job. Same thing with Indy talents, like we're talking about. If you, no matter what you do, pick that board up, like you were talking about, pick that board up. When you first get there, they give you a finish. Got it. Now, you can earn the right eventually to go, hey, but what if we tried it this way? Because I don't know that makes sense. As long as you're being constructive and not just, no, let's do this, you can kind of work your way into that spot, even though, because it's not how you get there, it's get there and then make the best of that and show that attitude. And I think that's the kind of stuff that proves long term.
Absolutely. Anyway. Absolutely. Moving right along, One Fall Wrestling announced that this Friday night they are starting a title tournament to crown their first champion. They announced the 4 matches, the 8 competitors, and the winners of these 4 matches will battle in a fatal 4-way on Monday, May 19th. Here's the matches. And then maybe Nick and I will make our picks. QT Marshall versus Trevor Blackwell. Brady Booker versus Parker Lee. Adam Priest versus Vari Morales. And KJ Impala versus Elijah Drago. None of these names surprised me in the least. This would have been probably the same. Maybe a little bit KJ, because he's mainly been in a tag team at Turnbuckle / One Fall. But you take that out of it, he is definitely one of the top 8. Nick, as you're looking at this, maybe we make our picks on the other show, but these are hard picks to make.
No, man, let's go into it right here, because we're so loaded on the other show. Let's dive into it real quick.
Yeah.
Look, there again, like you said. Now, KJ Impala's been on a winning streak, and that's the thing. He's been on a singles run as of late at One Fall. I saw 2 or 3 of those wins in person, and I think that's kind of how he's. Look, he's, by the way, recently that Wrestle America champion, so he's starting to. So I think people are starting to see, like, he could be the guy. How often testament, man, to One Fall right here. When I look at that 8-man, block of wrestlers, how many times do we see tournaments start out and you're like, okay, these 3 guys don't have a chance? Like, or, and if it was an 8-man tournament, it's probably half or even more.
Yeah.
That you're like, yeah, none of these guys are going to win it. I could literally sit here and argue why every guy, like, look, QT is the obvious, right? Like, yeah, okay, we get it. He's the face of the company. It's his company. Wait, here's my argument. Is he, though? You sure it's not Brady Booker?
Yeah.
You sure that he's not the guy that's the face of the company right now? By the way, Parker, I'm going to just run through and then we'll come back and do our picks. Parker Lee, by the way, recently has a one-on-one victory versus QT. Doesn't matter how he got it. Record book show he's got to win.
Yeah.
Adam Priest, we're going to discuss a little bit more in a minute. Or do you just want to do it right here?
Yeah, Adam Priest, who's the new Deadlock Pro heavyweight champion, which is a huge deal.
It's a massive deal. So, giving him props for, by the way, the reason why, it's because he's picking up championships on a broader scale. It's not just a local, no offense or whatever, but it's not a local title. It's a bigger scale championship, right? Cool.
Yeah.
So there's Adam Priest's case for, right? He could be the guy. Vari Morales, I don't think I could, look, if you've listened to the show on a regular basis, you know what we think of Vari Morales. And, we complain that he's not booked in more promotions. We booked whatever. You could make the case sometimes. We joke that he's the measuring stick at one fall, right?
Yes.
He's their X-Pac. No, whether, I don't know if he'd like that in comparison or not, but he's the guy that you send out there and go like, hey, wrestle this guy. If you can't wrestle him, you don't belong here. Mm-hmm. So guess what? Quite an argument to be made. He could be the champion. KJ, we've just made his case a second ago. And Ilya Drago, have you seen the guy? Looks like a champion. So I just rattled through. And by the way, Trevor Blackwell is your Georgia Premier champion at the moment as well. So he's got championship pedigree behind him as well. So there's 8 guys that you could easily make the case for, that they all could be the champion. Now, they're all going to end up, whoever wins these matches, and they get to this 4-way on May 19th, which is a Monday show, by the way, in Watkinsville. You should definitely get your tickets when get it ready. I'll let you come back now if you want to start going through the process. I don't know how you want to pick.
I think QT has got the veteran experience, and I think he's gonna outlast and outsmart Trevor Blackwell, and he's gonna be one of the 4. What do you think?
Yes, I'll agree. Yes, pure and simple. Like, again, he's the face, of the company, quote unquote. I could easily see him. He's got to be in the Final 4.
Yes. Brady Booker and Parker Lee. If you asked me this 3 months ago, it's Brady Booker all day, every day, twice on Sunday. But now that Parker Lee has Hyena Hera by his side, I think Parker Lee, I don't know if you can call it an upset. Maybe it's an upset in our hearts. I think Parker Lee makes it to the finals of this title tournament.
You crazy? I'm with you. I think Brady Booker's here. I have to preface with here, because I think when you do these tournaments, sorry, I'm gonna scrap that. I almost gave an analogy. Scrapping that one in hindsight. Sorry, I'll tell you that one off the air. You got a couple options when you crown your first champion. You could do the obvious and put like the guy as your champion, or you could throw everybody a curveball and give it like, hey, this is something we didn't see coming. But again, all these guys we think are legitimate guys who could easily be your first champion. I think you throw a curveball on this, if that makes any sense. I say you throw a curveball, and the final champion's going to be somebody you probably wouldn't think, and I know I'm spoiling a whole lot of picks that I'm about to give, but I will start with Parker Lee being the big upset.
Yes. Adam Priest and Vari Morales, that's a coin flip for me, but I'm going with Vari Morales. I can't remember who won when they wrestled. We were on the show, so we didn't get to see the match. But it's a toss-up. These guys are so evenly matched. Obviously, they have resumes that go on for days, but I think Vari Morales is going to pick up the win in this one.
I'm trying to balance it out. I'm going to go Vari as well. I think Priest being the new Deadlock Pro champion, there's a fine line. You have to give a title to the guy that you think can make most of your shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Priest is in such high demand that he may miss some of these shows. So that's why I will. But I think, look, I again can't sing Vari Morales' praises enough. I think he's probably easily one of the best wrestlers in Georgia. So I'm going Vari Morales.
Yes. KJ Impala and Elia Drago. Dude, man, such a hard choice. I think Drago understands his resume is missing championship pedigree. And I think he is going to pull out all the stops and I think I don't know if that's an upset, but I think he's going to win this one and get to the fatal four way.
So we're in agreement. It's clearly across the first four matches. We're in agreement. I think Drago is championship pedigree. I mean, like I said, you just look at the guy. He just screams champion. I can see a title around his waist, without hesitation. So I'm gonna go. So the first four we're total agreement on.
Yes.
So that brings us to the four-way on May 19th. And now, so again, recap, we have QT, Parker Lee, Vari Morales, and Ilya Drago. That's your four. So you got to pick out of that. Now you've got to crown a champion.
I think it's Parker Lee. I think Hyena Hera. I think they come out. I think one fall when they crown a women's champion, I think Parker Lee and Hyena Hera are going to be the power couple. That's just me. I can't believe I'm picking that, but that's just I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick. But I think it's Drago.
I can't argue against that at all.
Everything in my bones wants to pick Vari Morales as the guy. But I just think I see. Here's why, by the way. I don't know if you strategically planned out. You may not have planned it this way. I did. I put two baby faces and two heels in the four-way. Which is why I had to pick the way I picked, because originally I was sitting there going like I had three baby faces and one heel.
Yeah,
that just didn't work. I didn't feel like, so you got to go for it. Is what it is. And I just think I know the look. Here's the thing. I think there's the two. If we were doing FanDuel or something like that, we're putting betting odds on it. I picked completely against them, but I think the two favorites to win the tournament are Drago and Booker. I think those are your two odds-on favorites.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. But Nick, you didn't even pick him to win in his first round match. I get it, but that's not what I'm telling you. If he wins, I think if Booker wins the match over Parker Lee, I think he skyrockets to he's the front runner and he's the face of the company and he's going to be your first champion. I'm just playing the game of wrestling booking 101 and had to put two, and that's just kind of the ones I put. Could you do QT, Brady, Priest, and Drago? Sure. But I don't like picking against Vari, so I didn't. You see what I mean? It doesn't matter. So, and I'm still coming around to, like, I think your faces of your company are either Booker or Drago for now. So I would pick Drago because I love the heel champion with the baby faces chasing. That's just always been kind of my thing. So that's why I would pick Drago if I were just picking it real quick, running through this.
Well, fans, make sure you write down those picks, and then we'll know next week on the show who, if we were right about the four-way, and then May 19th is when they're going to crown their.
Which, by the way, I'm going to this show.
Oh, nice.
So I when they announced the title was going to be, I'm like, hey, I gotta go, watch the process here. By the way, I just want to clarify, people are probably throwing up question marks about like, hey, but didn't they did have, they were using the Nightmare Factory titles now with the split with Turnbuckle, whatever, they're rebranding it out, new titles, so they're going to be right out of the gate. So I can imagine tag belts are coming at some point, maybe, or
yes,
in a women's title as well. But like you got to start with your main one and run with that. And by the way, kudos. I think that really good 8. I mean, good to pick. I'm tipping the cap to the 8 picked. I was like, that was really good.
Yes, very good. And I think it's also wise not to do all your tournaments and crown all your champions at once. This gives you an opportunity to just kind of build some things. But we're obviously going to have our eye on One Fall Wrestling. A lot more on them in the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. Friday night, Nick, Apocalypse Pro Wrestling. Some things happened where some things spilled over from Monroe, Georgia into Royston, Georgia. As Todd Sexton showed up, obviously of the Sexton Alliance, and he attacked Teo, who I believe was debuting at APW. Teo, who was in the Crusade there at Southern Fried and has been around multiple promotions as part of the Crusade. What does it say? I don't remember. I mean, I've been talking about Georgia wrestling for a long time, as have you. What was the last time Todd Sexton showed up in Royston? And when, I mean, this is Jonathan Feltner was not happy about all this.
Yeah, if you need the little backstory, Teo's the one who blinded Bobby Moore, hit him with
Yes.
the ring, the hammer for the ring bell at Southern Fried, and Todd put out a video in the car. He's like, "Hey, I don't have any plans for Friday. I hear Teo's going to be," because here's the thing, they finally isolated Teo. He was the only one from the Crusade there. It's close to the house for Todd. And here's the thing, though. Like, I understand it. They took his buddy out. They took out Bobby Moore. I understand. But, yes, John and Feltner are not real happy that Todd Sexton bleeding over the Southern Fried issue at his show and jumping. By the way, here's the problem. He jumped a wrestler prior to the show. You're not advertised on the show. And it's kind of like, hey, this is Feltner's stance. Like, hey, this is not how we operate here.
Right.
Feltner, I would kind of push back a little bit and go, are you sure that that's not how Apocalypse works just saying. We've seen them do some things that I'm like, Sexton might have a point. But nonetheless, wasn't real happy. Here's the thing. It's one thing that it's SCA's, it's, APW issues within in-house. Doesn't, I guess, the timing. But Southern Fried business spilling into his building is probably not what he was real thrilled with. But the point was the Sexton Alliance finally, like, the Crusade has spread across Georgia. The Crusade has.
Yeah.
Now maybe the Sexton Alliance realizes we're going to go get them at, no matter where they are. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, I like seeing some of the spread and across. Is it just me, or are we seeing more and more? We're going to get to this. That's a teaser, folks. That's a little bit of a teaser. Promotion spilling over into each other and, kind of seeing those things intertwined across Georgia.
I think so. That is literally our next story. As Action Wrestling celebrated or tried to celebrate at their 7th anniversary show, and two guys, no strangers to Action Wrestling, Cabana Man Dan and Big Dave are there to we think, join in the celebration. But no, they are there representing New South and attacked Matt Griffin and left him laying in the middle of the ring. And now Matt Griffin is in the terrible position of fighting a war on two fronts as he's trying to fight off the IWTV Dylan Hell's Tim Bosby takeover. And now he's fighting the New South invasion. So on a day when we should be celebrating 7 fantastic years of Action Wrestling, we're having to talk about Matt Griffin, the kingpin of Georgia wrestling, who seems to be able to dominate everywhere else, but in his own house, he's having some issues.
So we're torn emotionally on this. So let's give let's start. First of all, let's start with the plus. Congratulations, 7 years.
Yes.
In Action Wrestling, doing some of the most impactful stuff across the state, bringing in talents other people don't typically bring in, IWTV partnership, all of the positive things. Congratulations to Matt Griffin. Congratulations to Action Wrestling. Congratulations to all the talents who have come through there. And there's lots of them. Go check them out. By the way, they are on IWTV. Subscribe. Yes. Check them out. There are whole libraries there. You can go check them out. There's the pro part. Now, This is Action Wrestling, so we're supposed to say, we're supposed to say, man, two, attacks, like you said, two fronts. How's he going to fight off both? You feel bad for the guy. He's just being overwhelmed on his own, Okay, there's where there's where I feel sorry for him part ends. Because here's the twofold question for you. What's the old saying? I'm going to mess it up. Maybe he should clean up his own house before he starts going into other people's houses.
Yes.
He's going into Southern Honor. He's going into Southern Fried. He's going into, the Blood and Honey series was in town. He's doing that. Now he's on Now That's Wrestling. He's showing up all these other places. Hey, you left your house unattended, and, now you've got 2 issues at your own house.
Yes.
It might be time to retreat a little bit, but I forget he's the kingpin of Georgia wrestling. Sometimes the chickens come home to roost, right? That's the thing you got to watch out for.
Right. The very thing he's tried to do at Southern Honor, at Southern Fried, at Now That's Wrestling, at all these other places.
Hold on. I want to pause. Sorry. I'm going to let you finish. I completely apologize for interrupting. Successfully.
Yes.
He's done. Let's be honest. Give him his due. He has successfully done the things that he wants to do at these other places. But, sorry, now back.
Yeah. It's not like he's been a slouch. It is just, it's just ironic, not shocking. He's made a lot of enemies. Mm-hmm. And was this invasion by New South a preemptive strike? Because up to this point, he hasn't tried to mess with New South. And maybe they're just like, hey, before he comes for us, we're going to come for him.
That story is still yet to be told. We're going to find out the whys, I guess, over the next few months or whatever. We'll find out. Listen. I'm not defending Dylan Hales and Tim Bosby. However, I'm going to defend Dylan Hales and Tim Bosby. Dylan Hales is just taking Tim Bosby, who he thinks is the premier athlete, who is the Action Wrestling champion, pushing him to the forefront, trying to make him the best champion that he can. Look, again, don't have to agree with methods, don't have to agree with tactics, whatever you want to call it, but I kind of understand that approach. Like, I understand what he's doing. The New South thing, on the other hand, is, yes, is it a preemptive, like, hey, we're just not going to let this thing happen to us?
Right.
Or is this karma? I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. I feel bad that it's happening in his home promotion at times, but it could be karma coming back to bite. Look, I'm hoping to get an opportunity here in the near future to have this conversation with Matt Griffin and see what his take is or whatever. But sometimes if you're fighting battles away from home, you leave your home, you leave your kingdom unprotected, and maybe that's what he has done here. So we're going to find out over the next few months. But it's a major news that they literally ruined the 7-year anniversary for Matt Griffin in Action Wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely crazy. Let's move to this month's Power 5. And in this month's Power 5, we are looking at promotions. Normally it's promotions, wrestlers, people. But in this special edition, we just wanted to stir the pot this week. Here's the 5 promotions we think are doing well and what we would consider the Power 5.
Yeah, because, I think we've always had this debate, right? Who are the, how do you determine what the Power 5 promotions are? Because we've always talked about it. Now, we'll get into why we think they have their place at the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, right now, if you asked us who's the strongest, look, doesn't mean anybody not on this list, is a slouch. It's like, if you ask us who the 5 players are, this is it.
If you ask wrestlers, who do you want to work for? Who's drawing crowds? Who pays? All of that. Who's getting the buzz? Who's getting you exposure? Let's start out. These are in no particular order, let us say. Action Wrestling. We were just talking about them. 7 years. They continue to grow. They continue to draw great crowds there in Tyrone, Georgia. And then they go and do their school shows where they draw even more. They do the school pep rallies. They do a lot for the community. And then, they're one of the top promotions on IWTV. Action Wrestling continues to be a place that sets itself apart in Georgia and beyond.
Yeah, I think, look, when people ask me, why do you put Action at the top, as far as when it comes to these top 3, top 5 lists or whatever in promotions, it's always look, they're on the list because of what they do beyond the borders of Georgia. I mean, look, we'll get into they're partnering, like they're involved. It's because it's been announced. We can, they're helping run a show with Tony Khan, the Dean show. I mean, they're going to be 2 shows. I mean, and so again, it's what they can do, like, beyond the borders of Georgia, what they do in this, with the IWTV community, the talents they bring in that are not your typical, Georgia talents, that kind of thing. I think that's clearly why a lot of people know, like, hey, there are advantages. Like, the wrestlers see the advantages of working an action show, and that's why they do what they do, and they're at the top of that, right there at the top on this 5.
The next one, Southern Honor Wrestling. They continue to just kind of just keep going and keep going and keep going. They keep drawing great crowds, even with Gary Lamb kind of out of the picture. And I think it's only going to ramp up, especially as Matt Griffin has been in there. We mentioned him before, trying to take over. Joe Black is their champion. I think we're going to continue to see things in Southern Honor, and they're going to ramp up through the summer and into the fall. And I think we're going to see some surprises at Southern Honor. I don't have any inside information on that. I think before the end of the year, they're basically going to try to reassert themselves in Georgia.
Look, we talked about this, I think, on a previous episode where I said I think the Gary Lamb stepping away is a blessing in disguise. They get to figure out who they are without Gary Lamb, in every show. And if they think about we always talked about the base of when Gary Lamb was there, what their crowds were, what they, kind of a base thing or whatever. You can find out what you are. Think about if you could get back to that level, which they kind of are for the most part. If they, if they're getting that base crowd, and then you add Gary Lamb back down the road, maybe. I don't know if he's interested in coming back. Every conversation I've had with him, not interested, too busy. It's just I don't have the time. Look, but if he did, even if it was a one-off, imagine the pop that you're going to get, like what you can get out of that. But they ultimately, Gary's too busy to even allow the Matt Griffin, Gunnar Miller stuff to affect him. He's so busy in his work life. But if he were to come back, that skyrockets them, right back even to a higher levels. I just feel like they're in a good place because they've stabilized and they built their foundation without Gary Lamb now.
Yes.
That's why I thought it was a blessing in disguise.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The other one, we mentioned them earlier in the show, Southern Fried Championship Wrestling, this feud with the Crusade and the Sexton Alliance continues to build. It's now spilled over into other promotions, into other cities, into other towns. On the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, we're going to talk about their show coming up this weekend, which is going to have huge stipulations and implications. But Southern Fried there in Monroe, every 2 weeks, boom, Southern Fried has been there for a while. And David Manders continues to do a great job down there.
And listen, one of the things they do better than anybody, and it's why they always make this list for me, people can push back all they want to. They tell stories like nobody else. They've got some guys that are nipping at their heels on a regular basis. I think, Dylan does a great job at Southern Honor as well. But for the most part, Southern Fried's kind of the standard bearer for storytelling, because they will stretch. I mean, they will run stories for 6 months, a year, or whatever, and that's kind of what I like. I don't like, couple month arcs, and I get it. You got to have them from time to time, but they've always been, like I said, they know where their strength is, and their fan base is loyal. Because they're hooked on the stories. If you've ever been there and you watched, I always tell people, if you watch the shows, matches are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that ain't what's selling tickets, folks.
Right.
Look, I give you a sidebar into a national topic. I think I messaged you guys in the group text about the SmackDown promo with Orton and John Cena, and I'm like, okay, folks, that's how you sell tickets. Yes. They stood there and they talked. They cut a promo. It's the story, and that's why we were all in.
Yeah, Southern Fried, great storytellers, great matches, and some great young talent. That's one of the great things about this storyline, about this angle, is they've introduced characters that could be the next generation for Southern Fried, and that's hard to do, but it's vitally important. This next promotion, they have been declared dead. They have faced an uphill climb, whether it's COVID or the hurricane, and they just keep coming back stronger and better than ever. Even when they have booking missteps, Viral Pro Wrestling, they have really made a great home there at the Warren Road Community Center in Augusta. And they just continue to draw great crowds. They run every other month. And where I would have said a year or two ago, they may have been third place in Augusta. It's hard to argue that they're not first place in Augusta now.
I would put them there. Look, again, no knocks on the other two that are running there with there. Look, one's an upstart. They get it. It's just kind of a scenario where they've got Viral's got the longer head start on them. But there is a lot to be said for part of why they make the list. Look, they faced venue issues. They faced all of those things, and they come back. And we've seen it across Georgia. There have been promotions that just can't recover.
Yeah.
Sometimes the resiliency is the thing that separates you from the pack, and Viral does that because there are people that there's a venue issue. There's you talked about it. Look, I mean, we're years later and we're still talking about people that didn't recover from COVID, promotions that never recovered. They haven't been the same since, or never came back, after, for that matter. So kudos to Viral for just plowing ahead and pivoting, changing directions. They've added people to the staff. They've, moved some things around, whatever. So right now you would be hard pressed that hey, when you're talking, we were trying to spread it around the state. You kind of have to argue that they're not right now. Hey, who do you want to work for in that area? It was really close because there's a part of me that was I know I don't probably should, it's hey, I'm not supposed to share the wealth here, but there was a part of me that was torn between them and Coastal, for that area, who you want to work for. And just, for right now, no knock on Coastal. I think Coastal's this close.
Yes.
Some stuff went down at the last show that I'm Viral needs to turn, and I know they're apart far enough. Coastal's right there. I think they could easily be the when we do another promotion top 5, they could easily kind of bump Viral. So I think both kind of upping their game at the same time has been really cool to watch down there in an area for a long time that people were just kind of it's just kind of out there on its own.
Right. Yeah. Augusta has definitely become a hotbed in Georgia wrestling. And then finally, the fifth one, it's a new promotion, technically. They will have run more shows in their 1 month of existence after this coming weekend than some run in a whole year. And that's One Fall Wrestling. We just talked about the championship tournament they've got going on. They're not starting from scratch, but they're not messing around, man. When you look at their talent, when you look at their ambition, they're putting Georgia on notice. They're not trying to put Georgia on notice. They're just doing what they do, and they're doing it well.
Yeah, and look, why does it make? Because I don't. You probably should, but I don't treat them like they're new. Look, we clearly get it. It is Turnbuckle / One Fall. The Turnbuckle name is dropped off. The One Fall's picking up, and they effectively did what we were curious. They just continued the momentum of everything they had built, and they were running. They didn't slow down. They just because the name on the building changed, it's still running at full operation. And I think that's it. And look, I sent you a note, which I can't share on the air, about the growth of that company. And it's it's insane. Like I said, they literally are going to be they will get to be there will probably be a show every Friday. They're running their Monday shows there as well in Watkinsville. Think about that. Watkinsville is drawing a good house on Fridays and a great house on Fridays and a good house on Mondays as well. And I'm just kind of that's kind of crazy. They're running Watkinsville twice a month. So essentially, then they're going to be incoming again. That venue I've heard nothing but good things about. I could not make that show because I was somewhere else, but I've got to go to the next one. Obviously, I'm locked. I'm glad they've kind of locked that into a position. So now we've added it to the calendar of regular. I just think between all of the venues and Georgia Wrestling Spotlight's going to prove a point that like in one day they're going to run more than a lot, than some people. In one day they're going to run as much as some companies run in a year.
Yeah, if you want to question some of our picks here, then you gotta watch the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight this week over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Because just the sheer number of shows that just happened, you're going to get full reviews, the Indy Rewind. But the Making the Drives this week is absolutely crazy with Cinco de Mayo coming up. The number of shows, there's no excuse not to find a wrestling show in Georgia this weekend to go to. There are going to be a ton. And again, it's amazing to me how so many promotions I would consider lazy and they can't keep it going. While one fall, again, I think the right word is ambitious. They are just they're just flooring it, pedal to the metal. And again, this might be the most ambitious weekend in Georgia wrestling history. But it's going to be fun to watch. But again, fans, you can check that out, patreon.com/tapped-out-pod. Don't forget, become a paid member. You get all the show notes. Nick, what are you and Myron going to be talking about on Tapped Out this week?
Obviously, we'll hit the highlights on the news, the big news and stuff that's out there. Got a little Netflix talk. Got to see how that goes. I don't know if you saw Eric Bischoff and Hogan dropped a video that'll probably come up, I'm guessing. But the special this week is it is a top 10 list episode. And here's the thing: I've struggled with the wording on it, so by the time it actually airs, I'll have the name of it. But essentially, it's a top 10 list of the best matches that did not main event WrestleMania. Because there was a lot of debate about. There was a letdown. Let's call it what it was. The main event on night 2 of WrestleMania was a huge letdown. And everybody's like, "Oh, this was a better match. It should have been the main event." I'm like, "Well, first of all, you cannot not have the title be the main event. I get it, but some years, a lot of years, the best matches happen down the card, and shockingly, like one of them opened the card. That was the best match by far away on the card. So we went top 10 matches that could have main evented and did not WrestleMania. So something a little mix it up.
It's going to be that one is going to be a fun one to watch. Again, fans, thanks for watching this week's Tapped In Indie Wrestling Show. Thanks for your support on YouTube, and thanks to all our patrons. And don't forget, fans, get out there, buy a ticket, buy a Tapped Out collectible from your favorite wrestler. Maybe, just maybe, you'll look across the room, and we'll see you at the matches.